Hello everyone, welcome to a sad thing, the spoiler talk for Jessica Jones Season 3. But the reason that it is sad is because this is the end, boys. The end of Netflix. The last one. Yes, we have made it to the finale of the Netflix era of the MCU. And I know people might talk about like Born Again or even Echo if you really want to count that one. But those are still Disney Plus projects. They are not Netflix projects. So there is still that difference. But yeah, here we are, the spoiler talk for Jessica Jones. I'm so excited because I remember actually liking this season more than the last one. The last one was a little bit of a letdown, you know? They just stretched that story out and it just didn't really work. Would have been way better if it was like 10 episodes. So much better. But let's see how this one does because I actually remember this one being better, like I said. So let's get into it then, shall we? So, we start off on a beach, which is a weird place to start for a character called Jessica Jones. But she is on the beach because of the fact that apparently the dad took his daughter away from the mother because of the fact that, you know, apparently he says that the mother is evil. However, Jessica Jones comes to bring her back because of the fact that that is not allowed, technically. However, when she brings the daughter back, the mom is also not really the nicest. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. And there's a video going around of Jessica Jones flinging the guy away. So that needs to be dealt with as well. And Jessica has an assistant, a new assistant that will appear throughout this season, if I remember correctly. Also, the whole kid being taken thing was actually an Amber Alert, and we'll figure out why later on, why she did that. Also, it seems like the kid from the last season is still kind of in Jessica's life. Maybe after this, he might not be, but I don't really remember him much in this season, so maybe he's not going to be in it. Sad that we didn't see the dad, though, but with the way that this episode ends, and I don't mean the ending, but I mean, like, slightly before that, I think they have broken up. Also, Malcolm apparently moved across, like, literally the room across from him. He moved from left to right. I don't know why he decided to do that, but he decided to do that nonetheless, so sure, why not? Like, it seems such a useless thing. Maybe the apartment is just bigger. He did call it an upgrade as well. So Jessica goes to the bar in order to drink as she usually does. That's classic Jessica. And the cop from the last season, Costa, appears again, and he's like, thank you for the help with the Amber Alert. And basically they've kind of made a deal. She helps him a couple of times and he'll try to keep her out of any kind of potentially accord things. I don't know if this is really referring to the Accords, but the way that they talk, it might actually be based off of the Accord. So that's nice. Jessica's not necessarily too happy about it, but she'll do it anyway. So then later on, Trish's mom visits because Trish is missing and Jessica could not care less after, you know, last year she shot her head. No, she killed her mom. That's not what you do, okay? So it seems like Jessica's still mad about that one, but she doesn't want to do it. And then later on, Hogarth calls. She is not in a good place. Sadly enough, she's still alive. And Hogarth is basically like, Jessica, I want you to kill me, but not now, later, with these pills. And also, I don't want to see it coming, so you have to judge. And it's like, what are you asking? First of all, you're asking Jessica to kill, but also judge the situation. It could be a slip-up that causes Jessica to kill you. I mean, I wanted to kill you now, okay? I was on Jessica's side in this episode because Jessica's like, okay, what kind of drink do you want? No ice? No ice. Okay, here, give me the pills. She put a bunch of pills into the drink and it's like, here, open wide. But that causes her to basically reject the proposal. But Hogarth will help with the video that has been surfacing that Jessica Jones doesn't really want surfacing. Then maybe you shouldn't throw people on beaches, okay? But to be honest, the dude was getting violent with her, as he said. I don't want to get violent. It's like, okay, it's not what you say to a woman, okay, sir? Also, Malcolm, still working for Hogarth, has to fix a crash, which involves like a, I don't know, like a star or whatever. I don't know who he is. I know nothing about him, but assuming by later on in the episode, he plays sports. So, he basically got drunk, almost killed the guy, but then in order to wipe it under the rug, Malcolm proposes that he just gets the car. The guy who almost got ran over gets the car. So, the dude accepts, and and Malcolm is like, this is the third time this has happened. But Malcolm isn't really happy with this type of job, as you see later on. Also, he's got a new girlfriend, good for him. So then Jess comes home, and she decides, yes, I'm gonna look into Trish after all. And we get some more detective work, or PI work, I guess you could say. She goes over to the apartment with Dorothy. I also like when Trish's mom appears, like knocked on the door with Jessica. Jessica opens the door, sees it's her, closes it. I love that about Jessica. It's like, Nope. But Jessica basically looks around and then is also like, oh, I can't get into the PC because of the fact that I don't know her code. And then Jessica instantly types in the code. It's like, I'm in. But then she starts pissing Jessica off and Jessica just kicks her out of the apartment. But also she reads an email that apparently Trish was going to send to Jessica. And initially it's like, I'm sorry, but also you were wrong. It's like, that's not really an apology necessarily. Just saying. So then she continues to investigate. She stays in an apartment where potentially something is gonna go down because Trish has visited that place. And then Trish appears. She sneaks inside of the building, follows a guy upstairs, triggers the alarm, and then has a little bit of a fight, which does not look good for her. So Jessica jumps from one building over to the next in order to save her. The problem is the dude took the thing that Trish was after because of the fact that that can link him to like a murder or something like that. Because apparently Trish is now big, a superhero. Also, she's got some weird abilities now. So it seems like the experiment from the last season worked. But it doesn't seem like things are good between the two of them. So then Jessica returns to the bar where she feels at home. Also, Malcolm is sick of the Cody guy. So he basically crashes into the guy's vehicle in order to be able to, I don't know, make him stop being a drunken idiot. And then he just walks away. So in the bar, Jessica meets a guy named Eric. They have a little bit of a betting match. Then afterwards, he proposes to her that he's gonna make her a burger, a real burger. And she thought it meant something else. And then they get a little bit physical with each other. And then there's a knock on the door. Jessica opens the door. She gets stabbed, boys. She gets stabbed just instantly. And then she pushes the guy away. However, she's too weak to follow after him. And he escapes. And Jessica falls on the floor. And Malcolm calls the cops. But my goodness, what an ending. So you want to know how Jessica is doing? Well, that's too bad because that is not happening. Because what's Trish been doing? Because that's this episode. Just seeing what Trish has been doing over the course of the last year. And it starts off with Trish training to see what she can actually do and also improving upon what she actually can do. She actually initially could not do that wall run backflip, but then later on she could, that kind of stuff. Also, Dorothy keeps telling her stuff about her career, but Trish is not interested at all. So after the meeting with her mom, she decides to listen to some cop radio, baby, and see what's out there. And she hears about a robbery, but she's too late. Also, Jessica apparently seems to be making the news for certain reasons. But yeah, but sadly enough, Trish was not fast enough to stop the robbery because it's already been stopped by the officers. And also, she then sees Jessica, tries to call her, but sees Jessica actually not pick up the phone. However, then she hears a phone thief behind her, and then she goes over there to stop him, but he recognized her as Patsy and is like, no, I'm not. It's like, really? Look, you are famous. What do you think was going to happen? So Patsy needs a costume, baby. And initially it's just the dumb costumes, but then she gets like a comic book outfit and she's like, no, because that is the classic joke in Netflix. You see the comic book outfit for other characters and you get no. Jessica Jones had that moment. Luke Cage had that moment, if I remember correctly. So Trish might as well have that one as well. But then she apparently did buy some stuff, puts it in the back of her car, and then she finds a hat and she puts it on. And then she puts her scarf over her mouth and is like, well, that works too. So she goes into the gym in order to train. However, she gets served because of the phone guy. And then she goes to Hogarth, and Hogarth sets Malcolm up to be able to fix this for her. And then also they have a little bit of a chat. Malcolm is once again saying that he does not want to be friends with her anymore. However, he will obviously help her with this. And then also Trish is like, I shot Jessica's mom, which Malcolm has a little bit of an issue with because of the fact that, wow, okay, yeah, sure. Good that you're still able to have a clean conscience after doing something like that. I feel like that is more the stuff that he has an issue with compared to the rest. Like, it's not really the problem that she shot Jessica's mom, but the fact that she's able to just be okay with that. That is kind of where Malcolm has the issue. But also, Malcolm will not help Trish in her superhero endeavors, I guess. However, she sees then another guy who has some files on potentially corrupt people. So she tries to help him, but then trips him so that she can steal some of the files that he has. And she notices one guy that really stands out in the file. So she follows the dude, and it turns out that he is actually one of those I will have my way with women against their will type of people. Disgusting freaks. Monsters, if you will, even. Disgusting monsters. He makes the creature commandos look like upstanding citizens. So he drugs a girl, takes her with him, and then he's like, oh, no, don't worry about it. Just a little bit further, okay? We'll make it. You're fine. You're okay. And he pushes her up against the fence, and he is ready to go. But so is Trish, and she kicks him in the groin area, and then and saves the victim, the to-be raped victim. She wants to talk about this with Jessica, but when she arrives, we get to see the official, I guess, breakup between Jessica and Oscar. Sadly enough, he was a good guy, but Jessica, after her mom died, became shut offish, and that is why they are now apart. And then Trish just leaves. So then later on, she learns about the sculpture stuff because of the news, and also her trainer tells her about it. And also Malcolm apparently got the case to go away by threatening the dude to tell the kid that the dude's not actually the kid's dad. So it seems like Malcolm is also not really the cleanest guy, but I feel like he might actually have a problem with that one, maybe, I don't know. But at least it's not murder, right? And also Trish has a new program called Styling with Trish, and the original email that Jessica read, but the original version was actually an apology, but then Trish got mad and wrote what Jessica actually read, and yeah, maybe you should just send the first one. That would have actually maybe worked between the two of them. So Trish starts to investigate the guy, and she goes inside in order to steal his sculpture, but she cannot open up the safe, so now she needs a new plan, which is obviously the plan that we have later on in episode 1. However, this time we get to see that part from Trish's perspective, and I do like the fact that we get to see both of these things from like 2 different perspectives. I like that. But then we just skip the whole thing because we already saw it last episode with Jessica, and we just skip to the ending where later on Malcolm calls Trish because Jessica asked for Trish because she's been shot, and so Trish goes over to the hospital, and Jessica's like, what's the name of the guy that you were investigating? And she gives her the name, and then she's like, thank you, you can leave now. And she's like, well, okay, and just becomes mad again. So things are not fixed between the two of them. We need the rest of the season in order to do that one. So the doctor explains to Jessica that she has no spleen, and I had to make the joke because the episode did it multiple times, so if I have to hear it, you have to hear it too. And Jessica wants to get out of that hospital as soon as possible, but at the moment the doctor's not really letting her because it's not good for her. Also, Malcolm is hurt because he crashed into that one guy whose name I surprisingly, or not surprising at all actually, I forgot what that dude's name was. Also, Jessica will not talk to Costa about potentially who did it because obviously she wants to do it herself. Also, Hogarth and her ex connect again, and she sends Malcolm to do some digging into the husband of her ex so that she can get him out of the picture so that she can have the ex for herself. That is basically it. That is all I'll say until it becomes relevant again. But for now, the only thing that is relevant as extra information is the fact that they have an open marriage, which means that he is allowed to sleep with a student, which, yeah. Why does that always happen? Maybe I should become a teacher. Nah. So Jessica discharges herself from the hospital, comes home, opens up her fridge, and sees that the burger is there that the dude made. So he did finish it, and she doesn't think it is an excellent burger. So that means she owns, no, but that means that she owes that guy $50. And now she's gonna look into this brand guy, and Trish is also still looking into him as well. Malcolm also knocks on her door and tells her that he has the knife that was used to stab her. However, it's too common and no prints, so here's the check. And it's like, well, expensive fees you have, Malcolm. So Jessica breaks into the dude's apartment. Trish is also there, but later on, and she finds a lead like almost instantly in the printer, and then Trish is like, wow, you found a lead in 10 minutes. I've been here for about an hour. Well, that's what you get when you have the expert versus the non-expert. However, it does seem like the dude has been trying to sell off the statue at auction houses, so that is the next lead that Jessica gets, and she basically pretends to be Hogarth's assistant in order to be able to find some illegal art selling places so that she can find out where that statue is and how to get to the guy. So eventually Jessica does land a location because Hogarth arrived and was like, I'll send you a list of places that you can check out. So she heads over there. However, on the way over to where she's going, she's followed by Trish, and come on, even if you were invisible woman, you'd still not be able to be undetected by Jessica. She's a PI for a living after all, because Jessica's like, ah, man, I need to take my medication. All right, what's the cheapest food you got? Pretzel. Okay, anything better? Hot dog. All right, give me a hot dog. So he gives her a hot dog, but in the reflection of the window, she sees Trish hiding. It's like, okay, there she is. And then she gives the guy like I don't know what you call it in English. But anyway, she gives the guy something that Trish then steals from him, and it's just like a dirty napkin, maybe. That might be it. I don't know. Whenever I think about that word, I think about babies. So, maybe it's the word. We're gonna go with napkin. So the dirty napkin is basically what she got. However, afterwards, Jessica sadly enough falls because of the fact that, you know, lack of spleen, as was explained earlier in the episode. So then Trish calls the hospital for her, but also searches her pockets, finds a list, and then heads off to do other stuff. So Jessica is once again at the hospital, once again discharges herself, and she goes to the art gallery place that she wanted to go. However, she will not be able to enter enter that place because there's a camera and a switch for the door. So what she does is she goes into the alley next to the building and then pops a couple of pills and jumps her way up. And I guess the pills are supposed to take potentially the pain away that she's going to feel doing all that stuff. And then she breaks into the place, finds the statue, but then she hears a familiar voice. So she hides, and it's actually Trish who is here as well because of the list. And Jessica immediately feels her pocket and is like, ah. So then the dude goes away in order to offer Trish something to drink. And then she gets behind the computer and takes a picture of it and then uses her athletic abilities, cat-like stuff, because in the comic she is known as Hellcat, the missing of the trilogy of cats. We have Black Cat, Catwoman, and then Hellcat, but Hellcat is never really referenced anyway. But she uses her cat-like reflex in order to get back on the couch without anybody really noticing. And then she leaves. However, Jessica's in the alleyway and is like, wow, nice statue. Also, give me the phone. And then she's like, you haven't done really anything with your powers, okay? Do you even train? And then she starts bragging about all the training that she's done, and Jessica just slaps her away, grabs her phone, walks off, makes a call to the guy, finds him, goes to his location, interrogates him. Turns out he was not the guy who actually hurt Jessica. So then she ties him up and then calls Trish and is like, yeah, hey, I got the guy and you can have this one, and then leaves. Also, I like when Brand was sleeping, she was just like basically throwing some food at him, waiting for him to wake up. I love Jessica. I say that right now, that I love her. That was just funny. So he gets arrested. Later on, Costa is once again at her place. By the way, I actually did look it up because I wanted to know, and Costa will appear throughout the season, which is very nice. He's not part of the main cast, but he will be here from time to time, so that's nice. I like Costa. But he's like, it's good that you have someone. And later on, Jessica, I guess something comes to her mind, so she basically either calls or texts, I forgot which one it was, but she does that to Eric in order for him to come over. He comes over. She has once again a little bit of a panic attack about the stabbing happening, understandable, and then she invites him in and then pushes him up against the wall and is like, alright, who's coming after you and why did I get stabbed for it? So she knows that the attack was actually meant for him. Alright boys, the villain has been revealed, but first we get the reveal that Eric owes people some money, a woman named Sal, and he blackmails people because of the fact that he has powers where he can basically sense the darkness inside of you, and he basically just slip people notes being like, I know what you did, pay me. Also, Jessica doesn't want to work with Trish, so Jessica and Eric head on the road to see at the Dropbox, which he hasn't even been to himself yet, to see if there's some money. So they get over there and they find 2 stacks of money. Okay, so 2 people paid up out of the 3. The third one is our main bad guy. So let's visit the first one. It's a man named Todd. So we go over there, but what is he doing wrong though? What is the problem with him? Why is he bad guy? Initially, we can't really figure it out until Jessica forces her way inside, because initially she thinks it's insurance fraud or something like that, but it's not. It can never be that simple. So then Jessica sees a doll and it's like, oh no, but that could be his. You know, you never know, that could be his. Okay, since the internet has existed, and especially like since like 2016 or something like that, people with the weirdest stuff have come out and are proud of it for some reason. All right, just don't get it. I like wearing diapers. What is wrong with you? Do not say that out loud. You know? So she goes further inside and she's like, oh, we got a whole doll room and it looks wrong. But then Jessica goes to the camera. It's like, oh no, you like taking pictures of the wee ones. You are a pedo. Gotcha. Okay. So Jessica locks him in a room and calls the cops. Onwards to the next one. Can this one be as wrong as the first one? No. No, nothing is as wrong as the innocence of a wee one. However, this one is bad too. And it's a woman named Reina. And they go over there. And what did she do wrong? Well, apparently she's been embezzling millions from the people that work for her. So that's not fun at all. So yeah, I guess the people here are not gonna be happy about that one either. However, before we go to the third one, Eric actually wants to quit because of the fact that, first of all, it causes him migraines whenever he is next to someone with darkness, and also he has to pay off the woman. So he goes to pay off the woman while Jessica heads for the third one. Also, Trish breaks into Malcolm's office. However, he catches her, has a little fight with her, and then, I don't know, tells her to leave. And Malcolm has still been going strong in his work against Leon, and he has finally found something, and he drops it on Hogarth's desk. And also he drops the truth on Hogarth's desk because the fact that he knows why she's doing this, and he wants a raise, he wants a better office, he wants everything better. And it works because what he has is the fact that apparently the Leons have made a trust fund for their dead daughter, or at least in the name of their dead daughter, and apparently he's been taking money out of it, and that is not good. That will immediately destroy that marriage and means also that Hogarth will have the woman. So I'm kind of upset about it, but also not really. It's a weird one because I hate Hogarth with everything that I have, but also this guy is absolutely the worst. But Hogarth is like, no, we'll wait, okay? We'll wait. By the end of this episode, he'll release it. So Eric goes to pay off the woman. However, he was 3 hours late. So now he's gonna be thrown in the pool and left to drown, basically. Until he is saved by Trish because of the fact that she called Jessica earlier about the woman Sal and being bad. But I guess she went after her alone. But she is able to take out the men, and also one of them gets thrown in the pool. So Eric grabs a knife and frees himself, swims up, saves her as well from a behind attack, and then leaves. And then accidentally Trish almost kills the woman, but later on we learn that she's kind of fine. So Jessica goes to the last one, the man named Gregory, and she goes inside, but she doesn't really find official evidence until she sees a knife is missing out of a set. And I always find that so dumb. Why would you use your own stuff? Like, you have a set of knives hanging there, you pick the middle knife in order to kill someone. Why? That's the knife, that's the evidence. Why wouldn't you just grab another knife, you know, like the one that isn't just hanging on a wall, where you could be like, oh hey, look, a knife is missing, it's easy, he's the guy. However, Gregory comes home and they have a little bit of an interaction, and also Gregory is like, oh no, powered person, please don't hurt me. And then later on he's all evil and stuff like that. I actually really like him. He sounds completely evil and also confident of himself, but also he can just be a little wimpy guy as well for play, for the cameras, and later on when he calls the cops, Jessica Jones is hurting me, please help, that kind of stuff. So Jessica goes back home because he said that he left a present for her, and she finds Eric on the floor, and he talks about what Trish did without officially saying Trish, but basically a masked woman. It's like, okay, that is Trish. But they go inside and they find a bag full of money with blood on it, and also one bill is on the wall with like hero question mark. And by the way, when he left that over there, he also stole back the knife and he hangs it back up in his place. However, to end the episode, he is not just a killer, which also at this point Jessica figures out. He is actually a serial killer because he's did it again, boys. He did it again. So Jessica and Trish team up in order to stop Gregory. And also, Trish cannot use her powers because she is the secret weapon. Because, you know, everybody knows Trish Walker, but no one knows that she has powers. So he's not gonna look into that. So then, if need be, Trish can surprise him with powers and take him out. In that sense, you know, it's smart thinking from Jessica. This is why she's the PI and I make YouTube videos for 10 people to watch. So Gregory acts in the mirror for no reason at all, and then also he leaves the apartment. I don't know what apartment he was in. I guess the apartment of the guy that he just killed. Also, he made a bunch of photographs, which I guess explains why the poster for this season looks the way that it does. I think actually it's a pretty cool poster. So Jessica has Trish stay up on the roof in order to basically spy on good old Gregory. But once he comes home and he grabs a secret file, she wants to break the rules by going into the apartment and stealing the file. Jessica is initially like, no, we have to follow Gregory because of the fact we have to play the long game. However, Trish doesn't listen. She goes into the hotel, cuts the power, which also causes Jessica to leave the hotel because obviously Jessica followed her in like, what are you doing? But she then left because of the fact that the power is out, meaning the cameras are out. Smart thinking. Surprising of Trish actually, but I guess we all underestimate her. So Jessica continues to follow Gregory, and Trish finds the album and she takes a picture, and then she takes a picture of everything else. Also in the album are a bunch of faces. So Jessica follows Gregory, and then he sits down and he's looking at hookers. I guess even a man like himself needs to be pleasured sometimes. However, that is not why he's looking, because eventually Eric shows up and they have a little bit of a chat, and then Eric grabs one of the hookers and goes into the hotel. So Jessica obviously loses Gregory to follow him, and he's like, hey, no. And she's like, what was that all about? And then Eric explains like, yeah, look, he threatened my sister. Also, he knows that I was the one who sent the blackmail stuff. Also, the hooker is my sister. And it's like, okay, and that all makes sense. We even get a flashback for us to confirm it as well. So then Jessica takes the sister over to Malcolm, who can hide her, and he accepts after a little bit of talking. And apparently, according to the photos that Trish took, Gregory's been killing for a long time. He is a long-time serial killer, at least 10 years. Also, we learned that Peter offed himself in a video where he also outs Jerry Hogarth as being the problem for everything. So maybe that's going to be a problem later on in the season. But this also makes sure that Hogarth cannot have the woman, and I could not care less, because during all of their scenes, I was on my Switch 2 playing Pokemon. Because I don't care. I truly don't care. Unless it's interesting, I will watch, but like usually it's not interesting. So then Jessica and Trish Trish have a bit of an argument about obviously the killing of Jessica's mummy, and Trish thinking that she's in the right, Jessica thinking that she's in the right, so this really leads to nowhere. So then the next day, Jessica figures out that Gregory actually chops up his victims because that will be easier to move around. So she has an idea, so she goes back to Trish because she has a plan. Trish needs to go to the morgue and get a body part, any body part, and once she does that, Jessica throws it through the window, and Greg goes down on the floor and is like, are you one of mine? Do I know you? It's like, oh, okay, yeah, he is definitely sick in the head. But this is all so that Trish can eventually follow him. But before that, he calls the cops on Jessica because of the fact that a woman has been loitering, apparently. But he leaves in order to get rid of the body part. Trish follows him, calls Jessica. Jessica arrives, and they see where he exactly gets rid of the body part. So then Jessica's like, okay, I'm going in, and you follow Gregory over there. So that's the plan. And also, do not attack him until we know for sure. So Jessica opens the tanker and sees a bunch of water. She goes inside and checks around. It's like, oh, there's a bunch of body parts here. However, she then trips a trap. That is a very difficult sentence. Say that 5 times. And now she's trapped in there. So she starts punching in order to get out. But Trish thinks that is the signal in order to be able to attack him. So she attacks Gregory. However, Gregory's then like, she has 30 seconds. 29, 28. And Trish goes back in order to save Jessica instead of following Gregory. So she does that. She saves Jessica. And then she's like, I'm sorry I murdered your mom. So maybe now they have made up or made out. Who's to say? The camera cut away. I cannot be for sure. Because of the fact that Gregory then ends the episode by kidnapping Eric. So the cops investigate the tanker, and obviously Costa wants to know how Jessica knew about it, but she's like, client privilege, you know, that kind of stuff. And also, Greg has a nice little time with good old Eric. However, Gregory thinks that they are all cheaters. All the powered people are all cheaters. Which, yeah, we've had this song and dance before in the MCU. It might actually have been in Jessica Jones, but I've heard this a couple of times in the MCU for sure. Malcolm also searches for Barry, and Jessica tries to call Eric, but Gregory picks up. So now it's officially confirmed that he has Eric, to Jessica at least. So Jessica initially gave the case to Costa because of the fact that basically it was over and done. However, because of the fact that he now has Eric, Jessica's getting involved. However, she tries to back of the building, but Costa catches her, and he's like, okay, there were 7 victims, and Jessica's like, no, there are 8 because there are 8 pictures. Give me the list of people, and then I'll do a search against the pictures that I have, and I'll know who the last guy is. Costa's like, no, you're done in this case, and then walks away. But also did hand Jessica secretly a little bit of the list of names of the victims. But like, there was another cop there, so he couldn't really help. So Malcolm finds Barry, and he violently punches the pimp, and he does not take her with him. He just walks away. Also, Jessica and Trish return to Jessica's home. However, Trish's mom is there, and then Jessica's just like, yeah, hey, your daughter has powers. Here, look, I'll throw her out the window. Which is like, okay, maybe there are other ways to, you know, test the powers instead of fragging her out the window. Come on. But then Trish and her mom have an awkward conversation, which leads to the mom walking away. So Jessica goes over to Malcolm and asks him for some face recognition software, if he has that, and if he can run the face, and Malcolm is like, yeah, I'll do it. And it turns out it is the face of a chef who is technically still alive. And also all the while, Eric has been trying to free himself. And we learned that Greg, back in the day, I'm calling him Greg in the notes, so I'm calling him Greg in the video. But anyway, he got abused by his dad, mainly. And also, I guess, his brother. And then when his brother died, his dad told him, I wish it was you. So yeah, we got the boohoo abuse storyline. And then when he gets closer to Eric, Eric feels pain. It's like, what is wrong with you? And he starts to kind of like analyze the whole thing. He touches Eric, which really causes him pain and bleeding from the eyes. And then Eric finally tells the truth. I can feel how evil you are. And it's like, you're a cheater too. And he's like, ta-da, bleeding from the eyes. And then he tries to justify himself, saying that he is basically really only a serial killer in the case of bad people. He literally takes these people and he wants them to have the face of like forgiveness in that sense, or confession. I think it's more confession. And then he snaps a picture of that and kills them. That's basically what our good old friend Gregory is doing. However, I don't know why he really picked Eric out of the bunch, because Eric is not necessarily a bad guy outside of the blackmailing. So Jessica goes to the chef, and the chef turns out to be gay and also be very much into kink play. So yeah, that's why he didn't really raise any red flags with good old Gregory. And the only way to escape Gregory, apparently, was to kiss him. Which I find super funny. he kissed Gregory because of the whole, this might all be an act role-playing kind of thing. And that caused Gregory to kind of keep him alive. And also he moved locations. And Jessica's like, wait, you moved locations? Then he must have taken him to the old location. So Jessica needs to know the location, and then she heads over there. Also, Benowitz returns in this episode. Yay, him again, the gay one, and he is gay and proud. He tells the world now that he likes Willies. People named Willie for YouTube purposes and also even any parents watching. He is just a big fan of men named William. But apparently, Benowitz and also the woman, I think, from the last season, they have basically poached 2/3 of Hogarth's clientele, including Rand Enterprises. However, she's like, Danny Rand will never stand for that. It's like, well, Danny's kind of gone, and I'm happy that they say that. I love some Danny Rand talk. But this confirms that even by early 2018, I don't know, let's say March, maybe April. Like, maybe April of 2018. Danny Rand is still off searching for the true meaning behind the fisting of iron. And that is the only reason. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have mentioned this whole interaction. So Eric finally frees himself and punches the dude in the face and tries to run away. But he does not escape, sadly enough, because he's too wounded from the migraine. And before Greg can do anything, Jessica comes in and hits him away and then knocks him out. And then the cops arrive. Problem is, the cops have no evidence against Gregory at all. They can't tie him to anything because the bodies have been scrubbed clean. So there is literally nothing he could do in order to be able to take him down. Even though Costa also knows that that dude is the bad guy. But there's just nothing unless she can get someone to make a statement about it. So Jessica leaves and she heads over to Hogarth and she's like, okay, so can I get immunity for a blackmailer if he gives up a serial killer? And she's like, no. You could get him down to a year though. And Jessica returns home. Also, Malcolm hates being the bad guy and he cheats on his girlfriend with the hooker for some reason. Come on, dude. Look, I might not be attracted to black women. I will say that outright. However, I will say she is more attractive than the hooker that you're with. Come on, dude. Like, really? So Jessica brings the proposition to Eric. However, Eric is like, I can't do it because I'll die, okay? When he touched me, I almost felt like I was dying. Put me in prison and I'm gone. And I do like this writing style because it makes sense. They didn't pull something in order to be able to have the bad guy out there. They were, the team behind this at least, they were smart about this. They were like, look, we have a guy who can feel darkness and he gets hurt by darkness. So if we put him in prison, he kind of goes under and he's also a blackmailer. It's like they thought about this. I'm actually surprised and proud of the team behind this because I think it's the same team that made the last season, and it just goes to show that this time they're locking in for, as the poster also says, the final season. But they are literally locking in order to get this done, and I am actually really happy about that. But now we are back to square one, so we got another 7 episodes to take down our baddie. Also, to end the episode, Eric reveals that Gregory knows about Trish as well and calls her a cheater as well, meaning that he knows somehow that she has power. So yeah, she's in the spotlight now too. Alright, so now what are the press doing here? Because they were not invited to this party, or were they? Because Hogarth is of course defending Greg. Can she die? Please, every time, I don't care about her. I never care about her. This is exactly why I pull out my Switch when she's on screen, because I don't care. But yeah, of course, she's defending the serial killer. Why wouldn't she? And the news is, of course, eating up everything that Greg has said about Jessica Jones, the masked vigilante, which he doesn't actually out Trish Walker, so maybe he doesn't know that Trish is actually the powered one, but who knows. However, the fact that this case is now become too public will cause some issues for Jessica Jones, so we can't really investigate him right now because he is hot. So we gotta go back a far ways to the first kill. That is because Jessica Jones thinks that Greg killed his brother, which is not true, but we'll get there later. So we go to the town where it all began for the wee boy called Greg, and Jessica Jones tries to get some files from the cops, but the cop is not really helping because of the fact that she knows who Jessica is. So then Trish outside causes a distraction, which causes Jessica Jones to go inside in order to be able to grab some files and run away. Malcolm also returns to the office. However, However, he sees that Gregory is there, so he pretends to join the team. And also, he tells Hogarth, I'm gonna look into this guy because I'm supposed to be, you know, kind of keeping this from blowing back on us. So I'll just look into it, see if he's got any skeletons in his closet. But also, I guess he is here in order to be able to be on the team, to know what's gonna happen and feed that information to Jessica. So Jessica and Trish have gone through the files, but it does indeed seem like, sadly enough, Gregory did not kill his brother. However, then the next day, it seems like Trish has made a discovery, and that is the fact that there might have been a first victim called Nathan. Apparently, Nathan and Greg were very close together. So this will be our W, boys. This will be our biggest W. Maybe he was the first. Let's hope he was. So Jessica goes to the parents, and the wife wants her gone, and the husband is like, but she can help. So she explores the house, and then she's like, oh, look at this photo from Greg. It says Nathan is never too far away from you guys, or whatever it says, you know, but close to you, or he'll always be with you, whatever. That seems to be the backyard. There's a big gazebo now in the backyard. Hey, when was that thing built? Oh, after your son was missing. Okay, very convenient, very convenient. However, the wife is so sick of it that eventually she leaves and calls the cops. So the cop woman comes down here. However, Jessica is now fully locked in. She goes to the backyard, destroys the gazebo in order to get it out of there, starts punching the ground in order to grab dirt, in order to make holes. So she searches around while the cop is like, I'll kill ya! Not really, it's more stop or I'll shoot, but I thought my version was funnier. Also, Trish comes in with a phone that is recorded. She's like, you're on camera. And Jessica eventually finds one of those gym bags. She lifts it up, and turns out the boy was inside all along. So the case is kind of solved, and now maybe we can use this evidence in order to nail the bad guy. So they go back, after also giving back the files to the police lady, to New York, and Malcolm has been shadowing Greg and follows him down to where he gives lessons to children. Also, Zaya was tasked by Hogarth to figure out who actually Hellcat is, because she got information through, in a way, Hogarth, because 3 of the people that she put in prison were actually part of Hogarth, and that's too much of a coincidence. And also, now I can kind of understand why Malcolm would throw everything away with Zaya in order to be with the hooker, and that is because of the fact that, well, she's also kind of evil, because she instantly wants to defend a rapist. That is instantly what she kind of did. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't like you anymore. Alright, you seem like a nice girl and all, but now you are just as rotten as the devil witch herself. However, she goes through the video files, because that was what she was tasked to do by Hogarth, and she sees that Malcolm knows the mystery vigilante, eventually known as Hellcat, or at least in the comics known as Hellcat. I don't know if she's ever gonna get that name in the show, but in the comic books, she is known as Hellcat. So what she will do with that, we will find out later on. So Jessica goes to Malcolm, who is still watching Gregory and the kids, and she tells him, like, look, man, you don't have to follow him anymore, because the fact that we may have actually gotten him on a case from back in the day. So then Gregory sees Jessica after Malcolm leaves, and he invites her in, and he challenges her to a match. And she accepts, and initially, he instantly takes her to the ground. However, then Jessica mentions Nathan, and that kind of causes him to flinch up, and then she pushes him off of him, and basically takes him down. However, she's like, oh no, body slam, I'm disqualified, I'm sorry. And also, he's like, the kids knew you're a cheater. It's like, no, they don't. They love what I'm doing. Okay, the kids love what I'm doing. What can I say? So maybe, you know, the whole Nathan situation will work in our favor, but I don't think so, because this was only episode 7. We have about 6 more of these bad boys to go, so this also will not stick. And also in this episode, Trish called the New York Bulletin in order to kind of become famous, I guess, which, yeah, of course, because look, the whole point of being a hero is the fact that famous is not really a part of it, okay? It's just what happens. You will become famous or infamous, doesn't matter, but you do it because you want to save people, not because you want to become famous. Superman doesn't go out and save everyone. By the way, Superman is on my mind because I'm seeing that in 2 days. Yes, this is being recorded on July 7th of 2025. But anyway, I'm seeing that in 2 days. Super excited about that, by the way. But he doesn't save people because of the fact that it will boost his ego. He does it because it's the right thing to do. Come on. But yeah, the bulletin guy gets some photos of Hellcat, so that's fun. She's gonna become famous, and she also will learn that that will have a bad thing attached to it as well, because Spider-Man knows all about that. It's a new day, and what an episode to begin with. So, Costa can't get the evidence because Trish revealed herself in the newspaper from the last episode, which, yeah, this I don't really like. This is one of those extending the storylines just because, and I kind of hate it. Like, the initial reason why the storyline had to be extended, I like, you know, the dude ending up in prison would actually die. That makes sense. That's good thinking, good writing. But this one, I don't. However, it is just basically to create this episode because I think actually at the end of this episode, Costa will get the body, or at least the evidence. So Jessica goes to her. However, she's on shooting and has to wait a little bit. And then Gregory sends her a video saying that he's going to kill someone by 7 p.m. tonight. So we have a bit of a ticking clock on this one. Also, Costa's gay. Didn't really peg him for the one who likes to be pegged, but still. And him and his boyfriend want a child. However, the boyfriend I don't really like. I officially not liked him because of the fact of the one thing that he said. Because Jessica tries to contact Costa, but he's at the whole adoption place. And then he's like, I have to take this. And then the boyfriend is like, is this going to be like this from now on? I'm like, he's trying to save lives. You silence, okay? Don't you start with that, okay? His job is to save lives. So if he focuses on you, people die. So don't be like that. Also, Zaya covers up Malcolm by editing the video and basically making it look like, okay, so Hellcat broke in and then left. Malcolm came in and left the office. Kind of like that. So, yeah. I don't know why she did that. I mean, she likes Malcolm, obviously. But, like, I guess there's not full evil inside of her just yet, okay? She is not on Hogarth's level. So, what I said earlier, I will take back right now, actually. The fact that she was pure evil. She's not. She's not pure evil. So, Hogarth wants Malcolm to find out who Hellcat really is. So, Jessica does not trust at all that Gregory is at home, like Costa is saying. So she goes over there in order to prove it. Costa's like, no, he's home. So Jessica knocks on the door and Stunt Double opens the door. Yes, he has a double, boy. So then Costa's like, dang it! And Jessica goes inside and she has an idea. She's like, Costa, you need to leave. And then she makes a video because apparently when you make a video on this like video platform, I guess in the MCU, if you get like 2 views, the video's gone, which is really stupid, but whatever. But anyway, Jessica makes a return video, I guess, a reply video if you want to. And she basically makes a video about her destroying his apartment, which makes him really upset. And he then makes another video and we get the official reveal of potentially who the target is going to be. Because of the fact that the first video showed 2 guys and a woman in a restaurant and they were the target. Well, one of them. And since his MO is usually guys, that means the woman is innocent until she becomes the target in this video, because we learned that she is actually the target. So now we have a bit of a race in order to figure out who that woman is and also saving her. So Jessica has an idea. However, we need Dorothy for this one because Jessica's gonna get interviewed. And to be honest, this is the type of interview that I will watch. My goodness. She instantly starts cursing. It's like, hey, can you test the mic? Yes, I want a bourbon. It's like, okay, yeah, the classic Jessica. You love her. You love her for that. However, when the interview actually begins, Jessica initially, you know, she tries to go along with it, but it's not really for her. So she grabs the phone. She's like, if you are this woman, go to the cops. You are a target of killing by this man. And then obviously the interviewer is like, actually, our station does not officially confirm that it is Gregory in case of lawsuits. And Jessica's like, well, I'm accusing him. Which I like. So once the interview is done, the police gets flooded with brown-haired woman. And Jessica and Trish, they go out there in order to find who the woman is. Until nighttime, when they have about an hour left, I'd say, they find a chemical company that actually was the chemical company that crashed into Jessica Jones back when she was a kid. You know, the crash that killed her family except her mom, who died by Trish's gunshot in the last season. So Jessica's like, this is too much of a coincidence because that is what made her a cheater. So they go inside, they interrogate the reception guy because they need to get to her fast. They go inside, have a little bit of a brawl with the security there. However, they eventually find the woman and they are managed to keep her safe. However, she's not the target because Greg goes to a different house and he puts on the mask and he's ready to kill. And then later on he goes home and he's like, I went out for coffee. Is that illegal or something like that? I will have both your badges. And I'm like, you were gone since the morning. At this point, the cops have actual reason to arrest you. So Greg goes home and he cleans up. Also, Hogarth wants to have a war against superpowered individuals because of the fact that Hellcat jumps down in order to kind of shift the focus from Jessica to her so that Jessica can grab her and jump away. But yeah, Hogarth wants a war on superheroes. Okay, sure. Let's see how that goes. Let's start with Punisher. I mean, maybe Punisher would kill her. I don't know if Punisher would kill her. I mean, there's a lot of shady stuff that she's done, but I don't know if she's been that shady to be on his radar. So Malcolm goes to Jessica in order to tell her about what Hogarth wants, that being Trish, and Jessica talks with him about the whole Gregory situation, and then she comes to the conclusion who the real victim is in this. And Trish goes home to her mom in order to, I don't know, I guess thank her or update her on the situation or whatever. However, the door is open and there's a pool of blood and Dorothy's dead. And Jessica then calls to Dorothy because she figures out, yes, Dorothy was actually the real target. It's just the woman that I guess Gregory was following looked, outside of the hair color, like, I guess, a combination of Jessica and Dorothy. Funny enough, she actually did look like a combination of Jessica and Dorothy. I actually found that funny because when I first saw it, I was like, that kind of looks like Dorothy with a wig. But it's like later on, they're like, oh yeah, it's because of the fact that she has black hair and also wears a black jacket, aka Jessica Jones. But it's a combination between the two. But yeah, she's dead, so obviously Trish goes insane, heads over to his place. Jessica instantly knows what is wrong here, so she goes over there as well. However, she sees Trish about to kill Gregory for what he has done, and Jessica now has to stop her. My goodness, look, I will say this is already much of an improvement over the last season, dude. Like, it's night and day with the quality. It's like they figured out what to do now. Because, like, this episode keeps me on my toes and I'm not bored like in the last season. I am so excited to see where this season goes. So, Jessica knocks Trish out in order to get her out of there, which I found a little bit weird. Not the knocking out part, the getting out of there. Because it is implied that they escaped through window. But he lives at the front of the building, which means everyone would have seen her if she were to escape, right? Just saying. Also, Gregory did not ID Trish because of he needs something. And also Hogarth once again goes on the television in order to defend Greg and villainize the vigilante. So Costa calls Jessica and is like, I'm sorry about what happened to Dorothy. And then later on she gets a picture sent to her of Trish assaulting Gregory. From Gregory, obviously. So she goes over to him and he's like, if you want that picture gone, I need the evidence gone. So you're gonna get rid of the evidence in order to save her. So then while Jessica Jones is thinking about this, Eric returns, baby. And she explains the situation and he also feels extremely guilty about what happened, where it's like, if I just turned myself in, Dorothy would have been alive. However, he does know someone who can help us get what we need, because apparently there's a corrupt cop. Basically, corrupt in the sense of he kills bad guys and steals their money in that sense. And apparently he's still been doing it even after the blackmail was paid off. So Jessica Jones approaches him in order to be able to get help. Initially, he doesn't want to help until Eric reveals himself. And then he's like, fine. So while we wait for the corrupt cop in order to open up the door, we get the reveal of Eric's first bad guy, because the first time he got his powers, apparently he got some dark senses from his dad, like some really dark stuff. And you know who he gets dark stuff from, right? It's people who do bad stuff and don't regret it at all. But he got that from his dad, so what could he have done? And then he is also like, well, my sister never came home, and my dad was always alone with her, helping her with her quote-unquote homework, and yeah, my dad raped my sister. You know, the hooker that we saw on the street, which also explains why she ended up on the streets as well. You know, it's basically all she knew because that's what her dad did to her. So then he confronted his dad. He got his dad arrested. However, then his mom killed herself through overdosing, and also his sister got mad at him for the fact that that was not his secret to tell. It's like, well, I mean, the bad guy's in prison, so maybe it was, you know, you weren't gonna do it. So the door finally opens. Jessica goes in. However, turns out Costa is there as well, so she needs a way to get him out. So sewer pipes is always the way to go. So she sabotages that, causes a spill. Ambulance was going by, or that stopped really close by, actually. Might have been the cops too. I can't really distinguish the sounds that they have. Might have been the cops as well. I don't know. Anyway, she goes in and then blows away the pieces of hair, which is the evidence, and then also slightly rotates the fan so that it looks like the fan blew away the hair, and then she escapes. And then when she says that to Trish, who also is hiding out at the place where she was actually scoping the one guy from earlier in the season, Trish isn't really happy about it. She's also not happy about Eric's return because the fact that if he had just turned himself in, her mother would have been alive. So Malcolm eventually goes to Hogarth and tells her the truth about the fact that he knows who Hellcat is, but he will not tell her. And also he tries to have Zaya be protected. I don't know if it works, but for now it seems like it works. Also, Kith's son goes to Hogarth in order to be able to ask her for help because of the fact that what his dad did caused some legal problems, and Hogarth wants to help. Kith is initially like no, but then later on it's like yes. There you go. Like I said, whenever we get Hogarth sequences exclusively, I am on my DS playing some Pokemon Platinum. I've decided to stop playing Pokemon Brilliant Diamond because it's Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. So obviously Malcolm gets fired. Costa arrives and tells Jessica Jones what had happened, and also the fact that he is now on paid leave because of the fact that the cops need a fall guy. So then Hogarth is studying the video, and it turns out in the monitor's reflection, she sees that Hellcat is Trish. So, Malcolm, you being an honest man really ruined everything, didn't it? So then the next morning, the cops arrive at Jessica's place because apparently the corrupt cop was murdered, and she was on body cam approaching him. So the cops think she has something to do with it. And, you know, Jessica, always alone, equaling no alibi. So she's in a little bit of trouble. So the cops search Jessica's place, and they find the file containing evidence of the corrupt cops, well, corruption. So they take that file, and they'll be back later. Don't worry about it. There'll be a nuisance throughout this episode. Then at the funeral place, don't know what it's called, they learned that they learned that Hogarth's company has Dorothy's will. So Jessica's gonna go over there in order to sort that out real quickly. Also, she thinks that Eric killed the corrupt guy, but he is adamant that he did not do it. So Hogarth really wants to see Trish, but that's not really gonna happen. And also, she wants the will to take care of that herself so that she can have Trish face to face. She's gonna have a little bit of a rude awakening about that one, though. But Eric says that he didn't kill the cop guy, and also Malcolm rejoins the team. He's back on the squad. Fantastic. Missed him on the squad, I will say that. So then Jessica heads over to Hogarth in order to get the things sorted. And then Hogarth reads the will and also is upset that Trish isn't here. But basically, Trish gets half. Charity also gets half. And that is in order to evade taxes or whatever. For tax breaks or whatever the reason is. But anyway, the charity will get half. And Jessica will get a chair. Yep. That's what means she's lucky to get anything. And also all the liquor. But she will get the chair. Apparently, back in the day, she used to sit on that chair a lot, so hey, it seems like Dorothy may have actually slightly cared about Jessica. Who's to say? So then Malcolm comes back with photos from the corrupt cop guy crime scene, and it turns out his badge was missing. So that is what the cops were here looking for his badge. Also, Hogarth gave Jessica a box full of stuff that belonged to Dorothy, and when she looks through the photos and we get the revelation that the badge is missing, the phone goes off. So she goes in, grabs the phone, and the girl's like, I got the part, yay, you know, I did it, I'm fantastic. And Jessica's like, Dorothy's dead. It's just rip that band-aid off immediately. It's like, Dorothy's dead. It's just, okay, nice to speak with you too. It's like, Dorothy isn't here because she's dead. Yeah, okay, that's just what you say. I love Jessica Jones not even wanting to just like slightly rip the band-aid. It's like, just like tear that thing off as fast as possible. So that's a bit awkward, but I love that scene. So Jess still thinks that Eric is the one who potentially killed the corrupt cop, so she goes over to him, and then at night she searches his place, sees a bunch of other files on other corrupt people, and takes a photo of one that piques her interest. And then when she comes home, she tasks Malcolm with finding out if the dude is still alive and also potentially what his corruption is. So Malcolm's gonna do that, but first he also gets Brianna back. Yep, she's back in town and she wants to go straight. She does not want to be a woman of the night anymore. She wants to actually get a real job, a real life. And it's like, okay, yeah, I've heard about you kind of people on the internet. But then Malcolm is like, okay, you can stay with me. And then later on, he kisses her. So, yeah. If it wasn't cheating before, it is definitely cheating now. Because technically, I think he's still supposed to be in a relationship with Zaya. But I don't know about that one for sure. That one was a little bit awkward. So then we get the funeral for Dorothy, which is very nice. Everyone came. Everyone is like, Dorothy helped me out so much. So it's all beautiful and stuff like that. Until Jessica gets a call from her assistant saying, hey, the cops just came here. Apparently they have a warrant for your arrest because apparently they have a witness who saw you beat him up to death. So then Jessica initially just sits down and stays with the whole funeral place until she notices, while Trish is giving the speech, that she's got some bruising on her arms. And Jessica's like, oh, no, you did not. You you are the one who killed him. So then she gets up, she goes outside in order to evade the police, because I guess she was just there to accept her punishment, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna let the cops arrest me. But now it turns out that Trish is actually the one who's behind the whole thing. Now I need to investigate. And that's what she does. She goes over and just like stalks Trish from afar. However, she then gets caught by the cops, so didn't really work out. And then to end the episode, we have Eric standing at a construction place, and we hear someone getting beaten up, and Eric opens up the door and he sees Trish beating the construction guy. However, the way that it is framed, it looks like the two of them are kind of working together. I'm sorry, he's just waiting outside for stuff to happen, then he opens up the door and sees Trish, and it's like, I think they might actually be working together on this one, which kind of means that they are on purpose allowing Jessica to take the fall, if that is true. So this is not good. Another episode all about Trish Walker. This one actually is appropriately titled Hellcat. So we get to see throughout this episode little bits and pieces on how Trish got on that show that she talked about at her mom's funeral. That's Our Girl, I think actually what the show was called. And also Dorothy sold everything basically in order to make Trish famous, or maybe to pay the rent. I don't know. It kind of looked like it was for Trish to become famous, but I don't actually know if that was the case, so I'm gonna give myself this out in case it wasn't. And also we get to see Trish's perspective on going after Gregory, which was pretty cool to see. He actually put up a fight. That's also where I got my image from for the apparently I just picked the image on the MCU wiki, but that's from that scene where he goes up against Trish, and she just doesn't even hesitate. She instantly is just like, it's me, Trish, let's fight. It's like, okay. And he also turned off the lights so that he could have the advantage, but she could see in the dark, so that didn't really work out. And then after that, in the stashed hotel where she was at, you remember the noise from next door? Yeah, Trish started banging on the wall, and then the dude came in. It's like, apparently he's not a wife beater, he is just a woman beater. So Trish beat him. And afterwards, she visits Greg after, you know, the whole evidence thing has gone wrong. However, he says that he has left something for Trish, and he made it pretty obvious. So she goes back to her mom's place, and she finds a picture of her face. So yeah, so Trish goes to Eric in order to ask for help with the whole thing, you know, basically work together, just like what I thought was happened at the end of the last episode. By the way, I have only seen this season once and don't remember much from it, outside of the fact that the main bad guy was a serial killer and not a powered person. That's all that I remembered from this season, so I'm like rewatching it again, but it kind of also feels like for the first time I'm experiencing it. It's nice, but initially he doesn't want to do it, but then later on he gives her basically the corrupt cop, so they blackmail him again in order to lure him out, and then Trish is gonna beat a confession out of him. However, she beats him up a little bit too much, and then she kills him by accident. It's an accidental kill. However, at that point Eric is like, oh my god, I feel so much better now. The pain, the migraine, it's gone. The world is a better place, which this will corrupt Trish, but it also goes back to what her mom said in the flashbacks of this episode, where she was like, you got this gift and you owe it to the world in order to use such a gift. So then later on, Hogarth visits her, and Hogarth wants her to do one job, and that is just to steal something from that guy that she has an issue with. Otherwise, she is going to release the photo to the public, and if she does the job, the photo will be erased. So it's a one-time thing, but it's Hogarth, so we never know if that is entirely true. But she doesn't do it yet because the next target is going to be the construction guy, and they scope him out for a little bit, but then she has to go to the funeral, do all that stuff. However, I thought maybe in this episode would also be the reveal of who the witness was, who witnessed the crime, because apparently there was a witness, and that is why the cops are after Jessica right now, but we don't. So then later on, as we saw in the last episode, Jessica is on the run from the cops and also follows Trish. However, Trish wants to hit the dude now because of the fact that that is the only way in her mind to clear Jessica, even though that is not, because Jessica does not have an alibi. Look, if she was with the cops or, you know, with someone else, they could have given an alibi. There is no alibi. So Eric is like, let's do it tomorrow morning, and then, you know, Jessica followed her, and the one who actually called the cops on Jessica was Eric, because he saw Trish walking towards him. However, behind, he saw Jessica, which I find weird that Jessica didn't see him, but whatever. So he hit, and he called the cops on her so that she would be out of the way and in a public place while Trish takes down the next guy, the construction guy. So Jessica's in custody, and they head over to the construction guy. Trish beats him up in order to get a confession. However, she then starts to envision Greg once she has the dude down, and she starts beating and beating and beating, and once again Eric has that sense of release, and you know that means he's dead, right? When the darkness is gone, that means that the dude is dead. So she has killed another. However, maybe this time Jessica will be able to get out scot-free because she was not a part of this one. But who knows? So Jessica is free to leave because of the fact that they found the badge with the bad guy, meaning she was not the killer. And when she comes home, Gillian apparently found Eric in front of her door and put him into the bathtub and turned on the shower. So that's fun. And he's basically here because of the fact that Trish now has the darkness inside of her, and it's about a 5 out of 10. Now, compare this to Malcolm, who was at a 3 out of 10. This is bad. This is not good. This is not good. But she's like on that 50-50 shot, so she could still be brought down to like a 4, maybe even a 3. But I feel like if once she goes to 6, she cannot be helped. And then he also tells her that Trish already has a target in mind, and she's like, oh no, that's the main bad guy of the season. So she heads over to the hospital and she wants to get Greg out. However, Trish appears and we have Jessica versus Hellcat basically. And for some reason also today is the day that everyone has to use the elevator. However, Jessica is able to get Greg out of the elevator. And then when they think about going down, Jessica has an idea and she goes up instead. And then on the roof, Jessica throws Hellcat to another building because of the fact that she cannot jump that far. So then Jessica takes Greg to Hogarth, who won't take him, and he's also like, look, you're the only one who can protect me, Jessica. Either you protect me or you let Trish kill me. It's either or. And apparently what I missed in the last episode was the fact that Trish actually threatened Hogarth. Kinda missed that one, fixing it now by mentioning it. So Jessica calls both Eric and Malcolm because they have to work together. Also, Eric learns that Malcolm and Brianna are together as well, so that is nice for him to know, or maybe not. But what their job is going to be will be revealed later on. So Jessica takes Greg home, to his home that is, and now we're waiting on Trish, who at the stakeout location arrives, and she's looking inside. She sees the man of the hour himself, Greg, and she's like, okay, my target is there. But then Jessica appears because Jessica looks at the photo and she's kind of trying to figure out where is the hidden camera, because how did he take that picture? There's no camera in sight. There has to be a camera somewhere. So then she throws him down and then drops the worm thing, and inside there's a camera there, and obviously Greg wouldn't trust the server, so she crushes the camera and then throws him to the couch. And while this was happening, Malcolm snuck up behind Trish and tased her to knock her out, and they've caught her. Fantastic. So Jessica, I guess, put a bunch of chains around Trish's ankle in order to be able to keep her there, which, funny enough, when she takes off her shoe later on, it actually looks like she could just get out of it, but she can't. And also Malcolm is going to be her watchdog while Jessica finishes up with the boy Greg himself. So then at home, Jessica is, I guess, doing some research behind her PC, drinking a bunch of alcohol, but then a break-in happens. Greg is here for Jessica, and she cannot fight back because she gets knocked out, and also apparently is paralyzed because he put something in her drink. So now he wants her to show him her truth, and as the fact that she secretly does want to be a superhero after all. Also from Trish, we learned that Dorothy apparently got abused, so abuse runs in the family, kind of. Dad abused mom, mom abused daughter. But once Greg gets what he needs, and he has officially confessed to the death of Dorothy, Jessica starts to laugh because he's not the only one with hidden cameras, because Jessica put one up herself as well. And that is why Eric is here, because of the fact that he has been recording everything. So now we have everything. And also, she was never knocked out to begin with. That was all a ploy. She, I guess, grabbed a different bottle. So she frees herself, knocks out Greg, ties him up. We got him, boys. And we have the evidence playing and repeat over and over again. She calls up Gostan's like, how would you like your job back? Because I just got the bad guy. So everything is done. We are finished. There you go. Bad guy has been taken into custody. Fantastic. However, we still have an episode left, so we're not at the end yet. But anyway, so then later on, Eric is like, am I a superhero now? I guess the next day, but yeah, am I a superhero now? And also, Greg calls Jessica and says that exposing Trish was too easy and that he basically had something else planned. I guess this plan kind of came into motion once he learned the truth about Trish. So then it's court day, baby, and he gets moved through the basement. However, he hears something in the elevator and he's like, oh no, it's her, please save me. And yes, Trish is here to kill Greg. And it's like, okay, so all the justification you had before now is kind of thrown out the window. You understand that, right? Because we caught the bad guy. He is going to be locked up for life. If this had played out, he would have been locked up. And what are you doing? You are basically killing him now. This is literal murder because he was in custody. We had him, and now you've killed him, which means that you are now the bad guy. And Jessica arrives at the courthouse. She sees Costa. Doesn't do a wave, but I automatically wave. I was like, hey man, how you doing? But then they hear a scream, so they go upstairs, and yes, Gregory himself Ralph is dead. And there's only one who could have been responsible, and that is exactly why we have one more episode left. But to be honest, his storyline did indeed end in this episode. Now we just have to deal with Trish. This is a bittersweet moment, everyone, because this is the last episode of the Netflix era. The last one of the entirety of the Netflix era, sadly enough, because after this, we are done. No more. We are fully in Marvel and Disney's hands, especially with season 2 of Born Again for Jessica Jones, where she will return. So let's see how this last episode is. And yep, Trish is the bad guy in this episode, and we have to stop her no matter the cost, outside of, killing her. We're not gonna kill her, but no matter the cost, we have to stop her, even though it might destroy Jessica and Trish's friendship. If Trish needs to be taken in, she needs to give herself up. She's gone too far. She's killed. She's kind of like a female version of the Punisher, but she's trying. Unlike the Punisher, she's trying to justify it. Frank Castle is not coming out here saying that he's a hero. He knows he is not like a hero, but as long as he doesn't kill innocents, he is not the villain either. So this episode starts off with Hogarth wanting Jessica to tell Trish that she's not gonna do anything bad anymore. Well, at least she's nothing like Gregory, and also she's not gonna tell the secret. Please say that, because she's trying to save her own skin even though she's already dying. So Jessica goes home after, Costa's like, you have to do something about this, and she sees Luke, my boy, Luke Cage. He is back, the kingpin of crime himself. What a nice way to see you. I don't care what you say, he became like Wilson Fisk, kind of. He's kind of like Wilson Fisk now, just black kingpin. He's even bald too. And he's worried about Jessica because she's been on the news too much. And he kind of wants to help out. But no, Jessica has to do this one on her own. And then also he's like, wow, you are very kind to whoever this is. I really hope someone is going to be that kind to me if I ever go off the rails. It's once again teasing like a third season of Luke Cage for no reason at all. He comes in here to basically tease another season and also talk about season 1 of his own show. But to be honest, he was an important character in season 1, so we had to see him again. So then Jessica uses the Find Your Phone app in order to find Trish, and she's at home. So Jessica goes there in order to take Trish in, but Trish is still saying that it's necessary what she's doing, and she will not turn herself in. But then Eric shows her that she is full of darkness by bleeding from the eyes after touching her, and Trish is like, okay, fine, can I just go and wash up before we leave? And I'm like, no, you can't. No, but Jessica's like, sure. And of course, she escapes. What do you expect? expecting to happen. And their next target is going to be Dimitri. And she calls Hogarth, being like, is he really that bad? And she's like, yep. Also, Jessica won't go to the cops. But I mean, she can't, because of the fact that that will mean that Trish's face is out there and the pitchforks will start flying everywhere. And it's gonna be hell. So Trish finds Dimitri. She attacks him. However, his daughter is home and sees what Trish truly is. And Trish kind of gets that reflection a little bit about that, maybe I'm the bad guy, but it's still not really getting into that thick skull. So Jessica goes to Hogarth in order to use Hogarth as bait. Also, Zaya once again visits Malcolm in order to pick up some of her things, sees Brianna, and is like, okay, you found someone else, bye. Even though he's like, I love you, with another woman in his home. Not really a good time, dude. You can't tell someone I love you if you got a woman in there. Especially not a woman in her underwear wearing a shirt, basically. It's not a good look. So Hogarth goes on the news and is like, I know the identity of the mass vigilante and I will all reveal it in time. But time is not now. So now we wait for Trish to arrive, and Jessica's here waiting as well. Problem is, Kith arrives. Because of the attack on Dimitri, he's kind of dropping everything. So Kith is happy about that. But she wasn't supposed to be here, so Hellcat comes through and Jessica takes her out, kind of, but not really. So she jumps over and uses Kith as a hostage in order to be able to escape. But Hogarth is like, let her go, with a gun, and also shoots Jessica in the leg. So Hogarth is like, okay, please, I will get you out of the country. Don't worry about it. Take me as your hostage. And she does. And so Trish escapes once again. So Jessica has no other choice than to officially out her, because this time we need all hands on deck. So she makes a video officially stating that Trish Walker is Hellcat. And now we scour through hashtags in order to find her, and then Eric joins in as well. So Hogarth takes Trish to a shady guy that she knows. However, she's never really done business with him. But we have to do this since Jessica kind of outed Trish. So the shady guy will get her out in a special coffin. There will be lights and also some oxygen tanks, so she will survive the flight 17 hours to Thailand. I don't know, she can eat bananas or something like that, because if I remember correctly, that's where my neighbor went like last year, and he basically sent me a picture of him with a bunch of bananas, so that's all I know about Thailand. So eventually the hashtags work. Someone, one of the two, that being Eric or Malcolm, finds a hashtag about the fact that Trish was spotted in a silver car, and that car belongs to Hogarth. And then Eric is like, there's also a airport nearby, so Jessica heads over there, and she's like, no, I gotta do this alone. However, the moment that Trish is in the coffin, Hogarth calls Jessica, who's already here, so you're a little bit too late. So Jessica goes in, attacks the shady guy, and then searches for Trish, and then it's like, ah, that's the one. Alright, let's get these other coffins out of the way, because I need to deal with this. However, Trish breaks out, and we once again have Jessica Jones versus Hellcat. However, it becomes a little bit more difficult, even though Jessica still takes care of her. But the lights got turned out, which meant that she was kind of in the dark. But Trish is kind of backed into a corner. However, earlier in the episode, she had a knife when she was with Hogarth. So she uses that and is ready to stab Jessica, and Jessica blocks it with her hand, going clean through. And that is it. The official realization that Trish has gone too far to herself, I think. And so she gets sent away. But first, she gets read her rights by Costa, and she's like, I'm the bad guy now. It's like, yeah, you are. Been that for a while. Also, Hogarth wants Kith, but Kith is like, no, you're gonna die alone. And I couldn't help but smile at that. I enjoyed that one very much. I am like, my headcanon, by the way, about Hogarth is the fact that she's dead. She's been dead for a couple of years. She did not get snapped away. She died during the snap. Jessica Jones, however, I have no idea how that's gonna go, because, you know, Daredevil survived the snap, so maybe Jessica did as well, but who's to say? So Jessica packs her bags, also breaks up, I guess, or breaks off everything with Eric, because he's a good guy, but she doesn't trust him. And he's like, then I gotta work on that. But she packs her bags in order to leave. She knocks on Malcolm's door, gives him alias investigations, and then walks off. Also, Eric goes to the bar to drink. Costa meets him there, and is like, Jessica told me about you. She said we should meet. And he's like, the guy in the red coat's a bad guy. What did he do? I don't know, but he's a bad guy, I can feel it. So maybe they are gonna be working together, who knows? And then Jessica watches Trish being taken, I guess, to the raft, because why else would you need to put her in a helicopter? And then she leaves. She's like, give me the closest to Mexico. It's like, okay, that's Texas. All right, give me one ticket to Texas. But then we get a familiar voice, boys. Yes, Kilgrave is back again. Voice only, sadly enough. And he's like, yes, leave. And then Jessica's like, no, I'm gonna stay. And that's the end. That is the end of Jessica Jones season 3. And my goodness, it is night and day, the improvements that they had in this season. So much more interesting. I am such a fan of this season right now. I really enjoyed everything that they did in this season, and it's really just season 2 that holds this show back from being greatness, because it did the one criminal thing, and that is, it became boring. So officially, this is number 3 in my listing of top 3 of the Netflix era, I guess. Number 1 is Daredevil, number 2 is Punisher, number 3 is Jessica Jones, and that is specifically because of season 2. If season 2 was really good, she would have beaten out Punisher, but she would never be Daredevil, no matter what. I got a soft spot for the blind boy, so I cannot do that. But this season was really good. I'm a big fan of what they did this season. Yes, once again, it could have maybe been a little bit shorter, but it didn't really feel like it should have been like 6 episodes like season 2. It felt like, you know, maybe like even then 12 episodes would have been better. But overall, I am a big fan of this season. Very much enjoyed it. It is such a good way to end it. But sadly enough, yes, this is indeed the end of Netflix. And also, in the last couple of seasons, I forgot to say it, but there was an in memory of Stanley, because sadly enough, he passed away. But man, this season is really good. I also really liked Gregory as a villain as well, because that is the thing about this series. Like, a superhero can take down a bad guy like instantly in that sense, but this show focuses on the fact that we need proof. We need to do it by the law, and that is where the problem for Jessica comes into play. She needs to find proof, and Gregory is very clean about the way that he goes about it. And even then, you know, like her not being able to use Eric in order to testify, which is great, and I like the writing in that one. Or her not being able to use the evidence of the hairs and needing to get rid of it in order to protect Trish. I like that as well. The only thing I did not really like was the fact that, oh, the photo got out and that delayed the investigation. That is the one part that I would have cut out. But outside that, the way that they extended this season, I also very much liked. And then the twist with the finale being about Trish instead of Greg. I mean, I didn't even know if Gregory appears in the finale. I didn't actually notice him in the finale, but maybe at the beginning, you know. But the fact that that is how the season ends, with Jessica once again losing another family member. Last season it was her mom, and now it's Trish as well. It is sad, but overall, like I said, very much love this season. So let me know what you guys thought about this season in the comment section down below. With that being said, thank you all so very much for watching, and I hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you did, please like button, subscribe if you're new, if you don't already, turn on notifications. Don't forget to check out my Let's Play channel, link in the description and at the end of the video. And then, well, that's it. Netflix is done. So what's next? Next up, we're gonna be doing a movie. I mean, not for me. I am gonna watch Superman tomorrow, which I'm super excited about. I've seen some reviews kind of talking about the fact that the humor is a bit too much, but I'm still super excited about Superman. I really hope he brings that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 essence into the movie. I'm still super excited. I mean, maybe I'll be like, it's a 6 out of 10, you know, but maybe I'll be like, it's a 10er. Who knows? But overall, the reviews seem to be positive for Superman, but also early reviews. You never know if you can trust them, really. But next up, in the MCU-wise anyway, I'm gonna be taking a look at Ant-Man and the Wasp. Back to the movies, baby. We are getting so close, because also this takes place, at least in the timeline that I have here, like a month before the snap happens. In April is when this season takes place, and Punisher took place in March, apparently. But like, this takes place in April, and we are a month away from the snapping. Man, we are so close. Just 3 more projects. We have Ant-Man and the Wasp, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5, and then we get into Infinity War. Man, I'm so excited. I can't wait. Bye!